This morning, President Biden is welcoming the leaders of Japan and South Korea at Camp David. It's the first trilateral summit between those nations.
The president hopes the meeting will project an image of unity between the countries amid growing tensions with regional rivals North Korea and China. NBC News Chief White House correspondent Kristen Welker joins us from Washington, and our foreign correspondent Janis Mackey Frayer joins us from Beijing. Good morning to both of you. Thanks for being here. So, Kristen, I'll start with you. Just walk us through what we can expect from today's summit. What kind of agreements might we see? What type of discussion is expected to be had?
Well, Savannah and Joe, good morning to both of you. We are looking for some deliverables. As you say, this is a significant summit. It's the first between these three nations, and it's really aimed at being a show of force in the face of an increasingly aggressive China and new missile threats by North Korea, including growing concerns Russia could be helping North Korea advance its nuclear arsenal. Now, the three leaders are expected to announce new annual military exercises and new intelligence sharing agreements, including what's being called a three-way hotline to communicate during a crisis. It's also the first time President Biden is hosting foreign leaders at Camp David, a hugely significant venue. Of course, it's the site of critical diplomatic negotiations in the past, you guys.
So, Janis, we know Japan and South Korea have a historically bumpy relationship. Help us understand why that is, and then what are some of the steps both countries have taken recently to try and mend those relations?
Very uneasy history. Relations between Seoul and Tokyo have been shaped by decades of resentment and mistrust that go back to Japan's occupation of the Korean Peninsula. Now, there have been steps made towards reconciliation, much of it credited to South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol, who was elected last year. He met in March with Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. That's the first meeting of its kind in 12 years. They're hashing out a deal to settle claims of forced labor. The issue that both men are facing is that there's not widespread support in their countries for all of these reconciliation efforts. So a big challenge facing them, their own domestic political environments, which is also a factor for President Biden.
Kristen, how big of a deal is this? How much of a coup is this for the Biden administration to actually get these two countries together under the same roof, given their bitter history? What does it ultimately mean for the White House, for the Biden administration?
Well, from a foreign policy perspective, this is hugely significant for all of the reasons that Janis laid out. The fact that there are these long-standing tensions between Japan and South Korea. The venue really, I think, speaks to this. One senior administration official telling us yesterday, Camp David was chosen quite carefully. I think there's a recognition that venue is reserved for only the most important and significant such meetings. This administration official citing, of course, summits that were held there at the end of the Second World War, the Camp David peace accords under former President Bill Clinton. So the venue is of huge significance, and of course, there is a lot on the docket today. This is a region that the Biden administration is increasingly engaged with, making this pivot toward Asia again as they are dealing with a rising China and new aggressions by North Korea, guys.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.